PokerClass is sponsored by CollectorsCash.com, your #1 online store for all you need for the Pokemon trading card game. They have all the top competitive and collector's cards on the market at prices you won't find lower anywhere else. Whether you're after tins and packs from the current format, or just looking for those hard to get primes to finish off your deck, Collector's Cash is your place to go. Make sure you check them out at www.collectorscash.com. Welcome to another episode of PokerClass. Today is episode 45 and we're currently in full swing of events at the moment, Battle Roads. The tournaments have officially started in the UK and I've already attended one, and we also have a lot more results from the US which are also pretty interesting. So today I'm going to give you my personal tournament report along with analysis on what we've seen evolve from Battle Roads so far. Let's get to it. So the 1st of October brought us to Manchester Battle Roads, my first premier event of the year, and I was looking forward to playing some competitive Pokemon again. We travelled up for around 2.5 hours and the place actually had a really nice turnout with around 29 players in Masters, pretty big for a Battle Roads over here. This means that we had ourselves 5 rounds of 40 minutes, best of 3 and only a top 2 cut. Now 5 rounds with just a top 2 is pretty strange to me, but that's just how it goes sometimes. Before I get to the report, the deck I was using was a slightly different take on stage 1s. I was using Yanmega, Zoroark and Cinccino. The Yanmega is fast and can attack the bench when needed, along with being pretty good against Donphan. Zoroark is solely for Reshiram and Zekrom, and the Cinccino is there to make full use of catchers and get easy KOs all game. The deck is really fun to play and is fairly different to the archetypes we've been seeing at the moment. My list wasn't the best on the day, but I was pretty happy with how it ran, and this is how it went. Apologies to those of you that read the sneak peek report on my website, but this would be much quicker, and those of you who want a bit more detail, head over to pokemondan.co.uk and read the article I wrote on there. So first round is up against Jack Stewart Armstead with Reshiram, Emboar and Ninetales. So my first game is going to be against one of the best players in the UK. He was a senior UK national champion in 2010 and he's qualified for Worlds every year he's been playing, so I knew I was in for a tough game. Game 1, I get a great start to his pretty average one. I managed to get a Zoroark with a double colourless on straight away, and get plus power into the discard pile ready to junk on when the Zoroark comes. The game is pretty lopsided in my favour, with me being able to take on the Reshiram with Zoroark and plus power pretty efficiently, and I end up taking the rest of the prizes with Cinccino's Do The Wave. So game 2, he gets to go first and has another pretty slow start. I'm able to get Zoroark up and running yet again to start taking down any Reshiram or Bad Ball that hit the field. He ends up using around 3 Fishermen in the game to keep up with the energy drops, but eventually he just can't keep up with the foul play and Yanmega KOs. So a very good game for me, and I'm on to 1-0. So round 2 is against someone who I've completely forgotten the name of, but he was playing another Reshiram deck with Typhlosion this time, which could be a little bit tougher for me. So game 1, we both got off to a pretty slow start, which his deck is designed to do, but mine needs that quick start to get going. I tried to slow him down the best I can with Judge, but he manages to get Ninetales into play pretty quickly to keep on top of that one. By the end of the game, we're trading prizes back and forth, but I'm finally able to get something going and the Zoroark comes to save the day yet again. I'm able to take KOs on his Reshirams that are damaged after an afterburner, and then clean up the rest of the prizes with catches I'm able to draw into and reuse with Junkarm. Game 2 actually goes right down to the wire and we have another really close game. He managed to get a perfect start of 2 Typhlosions in just a couple of turns, while I set up my basics to start hitting hard when evolved. He works off of a low hand for the rest of the game, which means I can catch up fresh Reshirams and have him add on the extra damage with Afterburner for me when Zoroark comes into play. We're tied at 1-1 in prizes when time is called, and on the last turn I make the randomest move ever by catching up a Ninetales using 3 plus powers and foul playing Will-o'-the-Wisp for a KO. Pretty crazy game and I slide through to 2-0. Round 3, I'm up against another great player called Charles Barton. He's been playing for a very long time and has successfully done well in every season I've seen him play in. He's also a fan of PokerClass, which is very nice, and we sit down to play another game against Reshiram Typhlosion. So game 1 is pretty long and he takes really early control by getting 3 Typhlosions out in a matter of 3 turns, but he doesn't play Ninetales, so he's working off of a low hand for the first half of the game, giving me time to present a response. I think I managed to get rid of all 4 of his Reshurams in this game via Zoroark and Cinccino KOs after some afterburner damage, and he changes to going after all of my energy to stop me attacking. Seeing this change, I also swap to attack him with Yanmega as quickly as possible while keeping energy in my hand to switch out if needed. This eventually pays off and ends in him scooping with heavily damaged Typhlosions all over his field. So game 2 is much shorter this time, and he managed to get going really quickly and starts attacking with Typhlosions this time instead. This dries up my energy pretty fast and I miss key KOs when needed. He ends up collecting during the late game for 3 Reshiram and overpowers me into the 3rd game. So time is called when we're setting up, which means we're going straight into a sudden death game. I win the coin flip, which is great for me, and I have the turn 2 Sonic Boom in hand, which looks even better when he starts with a lone Cleffa. I just bench a couple of basics and pass while he proceeds to capture Zora in an attempt to stall and ekes to try and fall asleep. Unfortunately for him, he wakes up and I have the energy in hand to retreat into Yanmega and Sonic Boom for the only prize needed. Some great games already and I'm up to 3-0, very happy with how the deck is performing even if it is only against Reshiram so far. So round 4 I'm paired against a guy called Scott who we hung out with on the day, so I'm pretty happy to have a fairly relaxed game with top cut in sight. However, he is playing Reshiram Typhlosion, so it's my 4th Reshiram game in a row for me. So game 1 is actually pretty long and we start up the prize trade straight away. I have to make a decision early on to discard a Yanmega with Junkarm, which comes back to bite me later on in a free Yanma prize for him. This tips the game in his favour after he has a lightning start and blue flares every single turn. I'm able to keep up with Zoroark and rescue energy to recycle him back to the hand, but I whiff on the double colourless to stay in the game. He proceeds to take some carefully planned catcher KOs and it's straight on to game 2. So game 2, I get to choose who goes first, but that definitely doesn't help with the start that I have. I manage to top deck a collector and go right for the Cleffa, only to find that it's prized. This means that I can't refresh my hand and I'm stuck on top decks for the rest of the game. Things don't really go to plan and I end up losing my first round of the tournament. So I'm on to 3-1 and know I need to win to even have a chance at top cut. My hopes drop slightly when I'm playing Alex Holdway because he's playing Zekrom. He's a great guy who says that he's a fan and we've had a really fun match even if it was against Zekrom. So game 1 is really short as he proceeds to go first and get the turn 1 Bolt Strike going. Pair this with a few catches on my bench Zora and we have nothing to respond with, so it's straight on to game 2. So game 2 actually goes really well for me. He's stuck on top decks and Sages isn't treating him well. I get the turn 2 Zoroark to KO his Zekroms as soon as possible and Cinccino mops up the rest with Do the Wave to take the rest of the prizes. On to a very swift game 3. So game 3 he yet again gets an incredibly fast start. Tornadus gets fully charged and attacking quickly which powers up Zekrom, and with each catcher KO on my Zora means I'm not going to do well in this one. The prize exchange starts, but I am able to keep up with the amount of catchers coming at me and I eventually lose the game. So overall, I end up on 3-2, which is fairly average, but it does show how much the matchups can have an effect on performance. I was really happy with my deck choice and with how well it ran, so maybe I'll take it out for another spin later on in the season. The next tournament is in Nottingham tomorrow, so hopefully I can grab me some championship points this time. At the end of the day, we saw a Gothitelle vs Reshiram Typhlosion top 2, with Gothitelle taking the first place Victory Cup, along with those all-important 2 championship points. Gothitelle winning was sort of a surprise because of how badly it's been doing recently, but just this win isn't the only change we've seen over the past week. Let's have a quick look at the table as it stands now. As you can see, there's been a massive shift in the table in one main aspect. Gothitelle has blitzed through 8 events over the past week to win them and take 4th place in the most winning decks so far. This is an incredible improvement over the table we saw just last week and shows us that Gothitelle is going to be a deck we should all be aware of. If you're starting to fear this matchup a little bit, then make sure you take against it. The only problem is that there isn't a whole lot you can do to improve that specific matchup. There are black belts for those Reshiram Typhlosion players and even Xatu from Unleashed if you're feeling crazy enough. Gothitelle will fold to Mew in any form, so play a variation of that if you're expecting to play against it quite a lot in your area. Other than that, just stay fast with the attacking and keep track of time to get the step up on this fairly brutal lock deck. Other appearances include the rising Kingdra Yanmega wins with a total of 3. This deck was heavily tested by players keeping a close eye on Canadian nationals, since it took second place there, but the dawn of Catcher has caused players to shy away from it just a little bit. Kingdra's weakness isn't the best, but it can be dealt with when you've got the option of spray splashing every single turn to rack up some serious damage. Reshiram Typhlosion is still going strong at second place with 9 more wins than we saw last, and Yanmega Magnezone is still there in third place with 9 wins, a 4-win increase on last week's results. However, Zekrom still reigns supreme with a whopping 24 wins altogether, a 4-win increase on last week's results. This is just proving that it has a ton of speed over the rest of the competition, and as in my report, it just can't be dealt with effectively if it gets a good start over you. This is definitely a deck we should carry on looking out for in the future. So that's all I have for you in this week's episode of PokerClass. I hope you're all doing well at Battle Road so far, and good luck to those of you going to them this week coming. Make sure you rate, comment and subscribe in the bottom left or top right corner in a second, and I'll see you all next weekend.